My name is Victoria Yip. I'm the Senior Artist Relations Manager over at Music Audience Exchange, a company also called Max. I am, happy to be here, and thanks so much for taking the time.
Victoria, thank you so much for being here. Super glad that we're able to get a chance to connect. I think what you guys are doing at Max is amazing in a number of different ways. So I can't wait to jump into all of that stuff. But before we get there, one of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of months is making sure that we keep the Black Lives Matter movement kind of top of mind. So I like to take a couple of minutes to kind of talk about that before we jump into anything music related, especially given how close these two things are, related. So yeah, if you're cool with that, just kind of want to start there and get your take on everything that's been going on. I know you're located down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're up here in New York for the most part. So curious to know your perspective, if you think some of the changes that we've seen so far will have a long-term impact. Who do you think has really stepped up and done a great job, not only, speaking from a business standpoint, not only, talking the talk, but also walking the walk and putting their money where their mouth is. Just kind of curious your thoughts and your take on everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, so I think we're in this very pivotal age where people are actually really paying attention, and it's led from a grassroots type of movement to really enticing a lot of change within the music industry. It's nice to see different entities in the industry themselves, anywhere from labels to publishers to managers and artists themselves, kind of jumping on this and really being a lot more vocal than they have been in years past. I particularly, made sure I personally took a day off to whenever we did the music industry blackout day, and ended up going down to downtown Dallas and protesting that day. I wanted to use my time wisely for that. That was just something it means a lot to me in that sense. I think artists have definitely stepped up to use their platform a lot more, which I appreciate. And I do think it will have, some impact, but I'm hesitant to really kind of put all my eggs in that basket, because what it really comes down to is we need more than just a black square on people's Instagrams for one day. We need actual policy change. We need change in terms of, in the industry. I really want to see more people of color, and especially Black people, be put in those executive positions, be put into leadership positions, be invested in. And I really want to see that across the board, from the top down, no matter what part of the industry that you work in. So, I do think there will be long lasting change, but, we're really going to have to fight to be consistent in order for that to happen.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think consistency is such a big component of this. And again, that's why I want to make sure that we're talking about it every week. So it's not like, hey, we talked about it a couple of months ago because it was kind of big and everywhere. And now it's we can't let this slip. And, I just want to make sure that I'm using a little bit of airspace that I'm taking up right now from everybody's day or week or month to talk about things that are important. And again, not saving this for the end of the episode, but really making sure it's front and center. Guys, before we get into anything else, we need to talk about, some of these systemic changes that we need within the industry, so that there's just more equity and everyone has a real chance to do whatever they want to do within the industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really important to me.
Good to hear. Cool. So now I want to switch gears a little bit, talk a little bit more kind of about your background, talk about what it is you do at Max. But let's start right at the beginning. I know you're originally from Miami, Florida area. So tell us a little bit about how you made your way to Texas and how you made your way to Music Audience Exchange.
Sure. So first and foremost, I am the proud child of immigrants. I'm first generation. My dad is from Hong Kong and my mom's from Shanghai, and, they both met in Miami, and my dad essentially worked his way from, coming over to the States and had nothing in his pockets, learned English, had an 8th grade education level. They come from, a long history of fighting communism in China. And, my dad came over here with no education because of communism, and, essentially worked his way up to become an electrical engineer. That provided him a really solid career for a while. And that eventually, relocated him to Dallas, Fort Worth, where I have lived most of my life. But, I'm a little bit of a weird hybrid in terms of I am from Miami, but, and even though I've primarily grown up in the Dallas, Fort Worth area, I split my time growing up between Miami and the Bay Area, as I also had other family members kind of have the same backstory and come, to the States with nothing and kind of work their way up. So I'm very proud of that particular aspect of myself. I've been on and off in the industry since my early 20s, since college. I came up from, volunteering at a local music festival called 35 Denton. And I started off as, a very lowly hospitality volunteer, picking up garbage and from artist green rooms, and kind of worked my way up to helping, plan, that year-round event, and, really getting my hands sort of dirty with the event side of everything. And, I come from an operations background in the festival scene. And, I owe a lot of just my general music knowledge about the industry to that experience there. I was there for about 4 years. And eventually I ended up working my way up to music audience exchange, and my story is definitely not that of probably like anybody else's. I very much kind of worked at, odd and end jobs like throughout my 20s, just trying to get my opportunity at Max. I've worked in the restaurant business forever. I've worked for, banking. I worked as a bank teller. I worked at the DMV. I did all these really shitty odds and end jobs while trying to also keep like my passion for, doing something in the music industry alive. And about 3 years ago, Music Audience Exchange, who is in my backyard in Dallas, which is rare enough in and of itself because, it's a company that's not out in one of the larger metropolitan cities that works in music. They reached out to me and invited me to join on their artist relations team. So I've been with them for about 3 years, and it's kind of, just starting to open doors for me that I never thought would ever happen. So I've worked a really long time to get to this point at Max, and I feel like Max is just the beginning.
That's amazing, especially hearing, kind of your family's story and your family's background. It's like, just imagine being able to go and do that now and have to deal with not knowing the language, not having the education, how to, like, what do you really do? Having a family, whether they're young or thinking about that, it's an amazing accomplishment. And it's something I love hearing stories like that. And then especially given that you're first generation too, like that's something I could tell that hits like home, those types of stories, like that type of work ethic, like it's really there. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Then, yeah, absolutely. And then thank you for talking about, kind of those other jobs that led to where you're at now. Too often, and I know we talked about this a little bit before on one of our, kind of intro calls, but too often, people coming up are just like, hey, I want that job fresh out of college. If they don't get it, they kind of just fizzle out and they don't stick with it. And it's like, hey, this stuff is work. There's a lot of people that want to do this. If you really want to do this, you have to go through some of those ups and downs and learn how to stick with it and figure out how to pivot and when something isn't working and kind of balance all that stuff. So again, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's something that's often missed. People don't understand that, like, whatever you want to do, if it's worth doing, it's going to take a little bit of work, and you got to kind of have that grit to see it through.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of, segue off of that, I think there's a common like sort of anxiety or just this like, idea that young people get that they're like, I want to work in the music industry. I don't know anyone, or I need to know someone to get into it. Like, that's bullshit. In my opinion, you don't. Sure, like networking is a huge part of growing your contacts in this particular industry. But I mean, I'll be the first person to kind of like get on a soapbox here and tell you, like, when you put in the work, people will notice. And it doesn't matter where you came from or how much experience you had, work hard, stay humble, and it will come to you. And, those opportunities and those doors will open for you, even if you come from, square one and don't know anyone like I did.
Well said. I want to jump into a cool little personal story that you also told me a little bit about as well. When you were first getting going, you were able to connect with Mumford and Sons. You mind just sharing that story with everybody as well?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this was back in my early 20s when I, was going through this phase of not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I had dropped out of college for the second time, and it was just a weird space in that period of my life, and I ended up going to a lot of concerts. And so, in the earlier days of Mumford and Sons, when they were, kind of first starting to gain a lot of traction and start touring a lot of like the major music festivals. I had gone out to one of their shows out here in Dallas, and I just did the typical like fangirl thing. Like I just stayed behind and just wanted to say like hi and I enjoy your music, and that's pretty much it. And I had been going through a very a personal story about myself. I had been going through some very dark depression during that period of time. And so I found their music, really uplifting and just helping me out of a really dark space. And, I was able to just kind of connect with them after the show and just told them thanks for the music. And, they're a really great group of guys. And they ended up inviting me out to go follow them to Bonnaroo, where they were performing for the first time. And so I was like, yeah, sure. So I packed up my car and told my dad, and he kind of freaked out a little bit. And I was like, I'm going to go do this, and I ended up following them out to Bonnaroo. And that was like my first music festival I'd ever gone to. And, it was just insane to be able to be at this experience and, be watching them sound check with just artists like Jillian Welch and it was just one of those crazy experiences that you'll never forget. And I remember coming away from that show and being like, I want to work in festivals and this is what I want to do. I want to work in the music industry. It was kind of like this like shining light that I was waiting for, this sign. And when I came back, that's when I ended up starting to volunteer at local events and festivals in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And then, like I said, from then on, I kind of worked my way up.
It's amazing. I love that. Number one, I love just the I'm gonna do this kind of on a whim thing, right? That's one piece of the
Yes.
story. But then also like a band like that to be like, nah, come through and like have a good time. And they definitely saw something in you as well. And so that's that. I love hearing stories like that because just like you said, it's like I'll never forget that moment. That was like set me
It was
off
a
on this
pivotal
trajectory.
moment in my life and my career.
Yeah.
It started
Yeah.
kind of like where I am today.
Amazing, amazing. I love it. Cool. All right, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit now and talk more about kind of where you're at today, some of the stuff that you're doing at Max. So, for those that don't know, can you explain what Max is and what your day to day looks like, as a brand partnerships manager?
Sure. So Max is a little bit of a hybrid in the music industry. We are a brand partnership company, but we are definitely sitting at the intersection of technology, music marketing, and music itself. So, Max has our proprietary product that's basically, our artist matching engine. And what we're able to do is we've built that technology from scratch where we're able to cross reference so many different types of sources of data in order to actually profile every artist and not only their fan demographic, but their consumer buying psychographics. So, we house over X million number of artists in our platform. So, if we were to look up Foster the People, for example, like it'd be able to tell you, here's what their fan demographic looks like, male to female, income, ethnicity, education range. And then we're also able to identify what their buying patterns are. So maybe, fans of Foster the People are fans of, designer handbags or, vodka, or maybe they're, hybrid car drivers. And so being able to actually source that type of technology, I think really shapes, a narrative for every artist. And, we're almost kind of like a matchmaker in that sense of, being able to help educate these brands that don't necessarily know how to work in music or what artists would best speak to their particular consumers, being able to kind of pair those two. So, in and of itself, like, we were created to help promote emerging music because I think a huge problem in the brand partnerships, vertical of the industry is that, a lot of brand partnerships end up going to like the top 1% of talent that's out there. And, not everyone is the Beyoncés or the Jay-Z's of the world. And so we were fundamentally created to, help promote emerging talent. While we've worked with a plethora of emerging all the way to mainstream talent, like, we really want to be able to provide those opportunities to help give a platform to emerging artists and their music and their story.
Yeah, well said. And I think there's an amazing spot for you guys because there's so many brands out there, right? And there's so many
Yeah,
brands, and then getting to like a financial conversation too. Like there's so many brands that don't have X amount of dollars to go spend and throw at the top 1%, but they do have a little bit of money and they can throw it to some of these smaller artists that are bubbling as well. And hopefully there can be like real partnerships that happen from that. It's mutually beneficial, right? The brand wants the artist following, and the artist wants a little bit of exposure, a little bit of money in their pocket to help continue their artistic vision and creative outputs. So yeah, I think when you're able to do that, starting small, like those wins, it matters, right? Putting $2,000 or
exactly.
$2,500 in an up and coming artist pocket is like a big deal for them, and they get like a nice little look. I mean, being able to identify those things is amazing, and I'm sure that's something that you love about that.
Exactly. So, pre-COVID, our primary, our primary partnership campaign basically looked like, an extensive digital media campaign where we film a lot of exclusive content with the artists, typically sharing or promoting a single, talking about like their come up and where they're at in their, career right now and what's coming up for them, and sharing kind of just their story and just being able to put media dollars behind that and get that out in front of lookalike audiences that maybe don't already like follow their social handles, but, look like fans that, would already be predisposed to like them, and, essentially helping grow their fan base. So we tie a lot of, engagement into that, or, maybe our brands are looking to, generate some lead data collection, and which we end up, cross sharing with the artists, which helps them out for a lot of future marketing efforts. And we tie a lot of brand activations into it. Obviously pre-COVID, we would be doing these at live shows, but just being able to build out like consumer experiences like flyaways to an upcoming show or a VIP meet and greet with an artist, like it goes a long way. So building even just that fan experience is another amazing part of my job as well, to give back to fans that maybe they're already fans of that artist, or maybe they just learned who they were for the first time. Kind of give them a treat in terms of a concert experience is pretty amazing. So my day-to-day job is primarily kind of working in the A&R capacity to help select artists and sign them for our brand clients. And I'm there from the very beginning in terms of finding the artists, signing them to a brand partnership, managing the accounts, all the way up to video production, and all the way to the end whenever we end up doing live activations. So I pretty much like to call myself like maybe like a Swiss Army knife of brand partnership campaigns.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what an A&R is, right? It's having the talent and the understanding to identify the talent, but then also kind of help mold it for whatever the project is, to make sure that it works for both parties, right? For the artist, for the
Exactly.
brand, and yeah, that's great. Given that live events are paused for the next year and a half or so, how have brands been responding to doing virtual events? Has your business slowed down, or have you found that brands are eager to jump in and kind of pivot to more digital stuff?
Yeah, so I think that the answer is a little bit twofold. Like first and foremost, we've never been busier, which is amazing. I think in the absence of being able to tour, artists are a lot more amenable to brand partnerships as a source of revenue. So that's been amazing for us. On our brand client side, I think that everyone is first and foremost, like everyone's just trying to make it work, right? So like
Yeah.
we're all just trying to still keep our jobs going. But I think brands are really interested in seeing like how can we shift the consumer engagement from a live experience to something virtual, and they're willing to take that risk, which that's kind of like the first step, right? And we've been really successful in being able to drive a lot of engagement, with live streaming. And we ended up, kind of pivoting in the age of COVID to actually building out our own, live stream platform, ticketed live stream platform, that's unique in the sense that, we're able to build out like an artist show with in-show monetization. So it's very interactive, really engages fans that, maybe, they're just super fans and, want to, pitch a little, income to, help out an artist. Maybe they're, upgrading to different ticket tiers to, win like a VIP, not win, but purchase out a, VIP meet and greet tier package, like things like that, which I think in the absence of live shows, that's been really great to kind of see that grow. And, I think brands are also very open to it as well. And I'm happy to see that on the music industry side, artists are a lot more open to working in brand partnerships. Maybe they didn't know that much about it before, or maybe they weren't necessarily interested in it before. But I definitely think, we've provided a medium for artists to continue to still gain revenue and exposure and still put out music.
And that's just like you said, we're all trying to work through it. And that is,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's at the forefront too, like trying to figure that out to put money in artists' pockets, but also make sure that it makes sense for the brand. So, and that's amazing to hear that you guys are busier than ever, right? It means that
Yeah.
the money's still flowing, and hopefully, it gets to the artists and the brands that are deserving. So, another question here, though. One thing I did notice was that Max, you guys recently started doing kind of a weekly email blast to artists and marketers. How important do you think information and understanding, one's market as both an artist and a manager, how important do you think that is, especially during these times?
I think during these times, it's critical. We're at a point where you need to kind of know, like we're all sitting in our 4x4 prisons, i.e. quarantine right now for most of the country. So being able to kind of absorb like what the current events are in our world is so crucial right now. Our marketing team does a great job of putting those email blasts out there and kind of, anything from what's going on in the music world to what's going on at Max specifically. So I think it's really important to kind of be able to, share with, the music industry contacts that we have, like what we're doing, and kind of educate them, like maybe if they hadn't ever really known or were paying attention before, to like how we're a very progressive model of brand partnerships. So like if they weren't necessarily familiar with us before, or maybe they have a very antiquated model of what brand partnerships look like, I think they're paying attention now. And that is very important in this day and age, as we continue to build our relationships on the music industry side and continue to sign artists.
Couldn't agree more, especially about just understanding one's market. That this is the time to do it. Like if you don't have that understanding, if you don't know what other companies and businesses and other artists are doing, you're not going to be able to kind of really come up with a strategy that makes sense for you, because there's no one way to do things. And that's why it's important to pay attention to a number of different things so that you can kind of pull from, get some inspiration and say, okay, how do I want to release something? How do I want to market something? Like
Exactly.
What other opportunities are out there for my music, especially during these times, given that I'm not going to be able to perform for another year and a half.
Exactly. And I think doing those like weekly blasts for us, like we're there to just kind of keep the wheels turning, like we're all literally reinventing the wheel right now, right? So I think being able to send that out and kind of just keep communications open as to what Max is doing in particular is so important, because I want people to know like that, we're still here, we're still grinding, and now is the time to really start paying attention to what we're doing.
Absolutely. And the best part of all of this too is that for the most part, everyone is at zero. So I think from an artist standpoint, like this is a major opportunity in the current music industry. I don't think there's ever been a time when like everybody has kind of really been at zero. Like people are still looking for, hey, what is the perfect virtual event? Like, how do you really monetize that? Can that really happen? What are we going to do for the next year? So I think there's, artists that are struggling should look to that as a source of inspiration, being like, oh shit, no. Everyone is kind of trying to figure this out. So like, don't get down on yourself. Understand that like everyone's trying to figure this out, and just kind of pull from different examples and see what works for you, and kind of mesh something together. Cause that's going to be the thing. It's also too, it's let me say this, it's not going to be one thing. I don't think it's going to be one thing that's going to like get an artist over the hump or get them being able to make money. I think it's going to be a series of things. And again, that's why it's important to pay attention to.
Exactly. And my hope is like, labels and PROs and publishers and whoever, like, will really kind of just jump in and be supportive of, artists just trying to figure out how to keep the show going, and as far as just their careers and to keep live music going in some sort of sense or fashion. So, that's been, if anyone's following current events right now in the industry, that's kind of been like a big source of the battle for Middle Earth, as I like to call it, is heroes and, the publishers and even labels
Yeah.
kind of get into the mix. And, in my very personal, humble opinion, I think, there could be a little bit more advocacy on their side for artists and, maybe even companies like us to, help support the age of live streaming because, I am hesitant to think that live shows will come back in 2021. And if they do, there's no way they're ever going to come back with the same impact that they did before. So, my hope is that the industry as a whole can really kind of start trying to pay attention to, people that are trying to make solutions to these problems in the digital age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that you mentioned was that one of Max's goals is to work with up and coming artists as much as you guys are working with established ones as well. So kind of in that vein, what does, an up and coming artist need to have going on for you guys to, what do they need to have going on for you guys to go after them and say, hey, this is an opportunity? How can they get on your radar? How should they be positioning themselves?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, obviously, one of the most obvious answers is to have a pretty, decent social following. I mean, but numbers are not everything, right? So, I mean, whenever I'm looking at artists and I'm like, okay, like, here's some emerging talent, the things that kind of stick out to me is like consistency whenever you're posting on socials. Like, you don't, like, sure, I would love for you to also be, consistently posting on socials, but what is your content looking like? So, artists really need to start thinking of themselves as brands, right? So if you have a particular brand, I mean, look at Ocean Spray Guy, like he ended up going viral with his, video. And I follow him on Instagram and I really love the way that he just kind of keeps the momentum going. And he produces all these like just quirky, fun little like skateboarding videos all the time, that brands and, may not necessarily be as, infamous as this Fleetwood Mac cover, but I like the consistency with that. Like if he was an artist, like great. I think he has, kind of opened like this new lens on, the influencer style and people are really paying attention. And so, I use him as a prime example because I want artists to be thinking about, okay, if I'm posting every day, like what am I posting? Like what is my content? Like how does it drive back towards my brand? Right. So I'm looking for things like that. I'm looking for, collaborations. You don't necessarily have to be the biggest artist with the biggest following, but if you're able to do some sort of collaboration with another artist or entity, or even pick up, a little bit of media on the PR side, publications, like, that's a great selling point for me back to a brand. And, I think that it also like helps drive the point that, you're really trying to push your brand to the next level and your artistry to the next level. So I think those are little tidbits that I kind of look out for, because, my thing is like, I'm always going to go to bat for the artist. So, if I find an artist that I really think, has cultivated a brand and, has pushed their boundaries of not just their music, but how do they interact with other people and interact within the diaspora of the music industry, that's really important. And I'm going to go like fight for you, and shine a spotlight on you.
Yeah, I think that's a really big point that a lot of up and comers don't tend to think about. They don't necessarily want to go super deep on social. They're like, oh, my music is doing that. Like that's where the fans can go. Yes, that is true. But as social media has evolved, you are competing with so many other people. You're not just competing with other musicians anymore. You're competing with everyone that's on that platform. So what is going to make you stand out amongst the noise? And oftentimes people don't think of that. They're just like, well, I don't want to post. I think you get some people that post way too much and don't have kind of a framework or a theme going or a reason for it. And then you get people who don't post at all and or don't post enough. Maybe they're only posting once a month or something like that. And there's no real cadence there. And there's a reason for that too. And I think, it's kind of, what do they call it? Like, I'm trying to blank on the first word, but like decision paralysis. That's not the exact phrase, but there's just so much coming at you. You're like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. And I think what people should focus on is stop worrying about what other people are doing. Look at your music, look at what themes you're talking about, what's important to you, and go make some content off of that. and then share that on a consistent basis and allow people to peek behind the curtain. Like, that's why people are going to follow you, because they're going to be like, oh my God, this means something to me. I can really connect with somebody. And I think, if they're trying to get, your attention, it's, oh shit, like they have a decent following, but oh my God, look how many comments they have. Like, these people like that are following this artist, they love them. They want to go to bat for them. That's who you want. You want the diehard fan who's going to say, oh, I'm going to go out and purchase ocean spray because this guy drinks ocean spray. And I love that. Like, you want to find those things. And too often people are just like, well, I know there's brand partnership money out there, so I want that. It's
and
like,
my thing is like, to sum it up, it's like, it's quality over quantity, obviously, but it's also consistent quantity and consistent quality. So you really have to kind of like, the type of artists that, I think I'm going to go pitch for, especially emerging ones, are able to kind of balance all of those different things, just consistent quality, consistent quantity. And if I'm saying like artists, think of yourself as a brand, you're competing with so many other artists, therefore competing with so many other types of brands, right? So it's like, for me, it's like you really want to, kind of shape yourself in a very well-rounded way, not just your social media presence, but, shape yourself as an artist, your music, who you're connected with, who you associate yourself with if you're doing collaborations. If you are a fan of particular brands, right? Like, consistency is key there, because I find a lot of artists and I'm like, okay, I can see, maybe they're a huge Jaeger fan. Cool. Like, instead of just, getting shit-faced on your socials and holding up a Jaeger bottle, right? Like, how do you kind of show like that you have brand loyalty to something? Because I love taking notes on that and kind of like seeing that sort of thing. And I think like, for example, like, I see a lot of artists that, are maybe just designer fans, right? Like designer luxury good fans. And that's really great to see. But, it's, instead of kind of like showing things for clout, like how do you turn that into, a statement that says like, I am a fan or loyal to this particular brand, right? So it's really creative with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, if you want to go the designer route and like pick a brand and go deep, like, why Louis Vuitton? And then like dive deep into the history of Louis Vuitton and understand that like French, luxury lines, like they made all that shit from hand. That's why they charge so much money and they make it in such limited quantities. And then obviously the marketing and hype machine years and years and years later, which made them continually popular. But they started out like making that shit themselves. So like, how can you pull what that means to the brand and like say, oh, it means the same thing. Like, I love Louis Vuitton. Look how they made all their original stuff. Look at how I'm making my original whatever it is, my new album, or I'm designing my album cover myself, or I'm doing this photo shoot myself based on this Louis Vuitton. Like, I don't think people mine, the brand's history as much as they should when they're trying to get the partnership. It's just like,
and it works, get that check. Exactly. And it works conversely as well. Like, if you're trying to market yourself as maybe an agnostic type of artist, so that way you can kind of keep yourself open to, all different types of brand partnerships. Okay, great. So like, be careful about like, be thoughtful about how you're posting, right? So if you, don't want to necessarily make a plug for certain brands or whatever, like, then try to, be mindful when you're posting content or photos of yourself with what brands you are advocating for, because it's difficult for me to be able to say like, hey, X artist is a fan of Jeep, you know what I mean? But you're always like standing in front of your Ford truck all the time. You're not really necessarily plugging for Ford, but it's like, it's hard for me to justify like what your socials look like if you're not being mindful of that. So like, however you end up deciding like what your platform is as an artist, in terms of the brand partnership space, just always be mindful of like what you post on socials.
Just be consistent and be mindful. Pay attention.
Exactly.
Like, oh, this actually means something if I'm trying to go this route. And then, again, to piggyback off that, to make, to sum up what I was saying, it's like, just do your research, do your history. If there's like one brand in particular you want to rock with and you're trying to get their attention, you need to do your research and go like, because when you get super deep, that's when you stand out. Say you find some like obscure connection to yourself and the brand from 40 years ago. Okay, well, maybe you can highlight that and pull that string all the way through, all the way up 80 years later, or 40 years later, and be like, hey, look at this cool thing. You guys did this long ago. Like I could remix this and we could put it out together. Like now you're coming to the table with solutions, and now you have ideas, and you're not just like the stagnant person that's like, yo, give me money because I'm an artist and I'm poor. Like I hate that shit. I hate that. I hate that.
And it's like, if you're really going to put that much thought into it, like you also have to be consistently growing like your music and consistently putting out music and, growing your artist side at the same time, because I see a lot of, maybe emerging artists that are too focused on trying to catch a brand's attention that, they haven't put out music in a year. You know what I mean? So like, that's also something that's a little bit hard for me to, go advocate for you for. You got to be consistent,
Yep. Well said. Well said. All right. Well, we're coming down to time here. Got a couple of minutes left before you have to get out of here. Kind of, I like to use these last few minutes as kind of just plug time. So, what are you working on that you're super excited about? Where can people contact you? And what would the name of your personal playlist be? This is like my Jesus and Mero question. So
yeah. No, so this is funny. Okay. So first and foremost, you can always find me on LinkedIn. First name Victoria, last name Yip, Y-I-P. Again, I work for Music Audience Exchange out here in Dallas, Fort Worth area. So you can find me there. I would say, as far as what I'm working on that I'm looking forward to, obviously at Max, like we have so many big things coming up in the pipeline for the rest of the year. You're really seeing a lot of brands that are looking to, kind of go out with 2020 with some sort of engagement in the music side. So it's, again, never been busier for us, which is great. So I'm looking forward to all the things that we have coming up the last like 8 weeks or so of the year. In 2021, we typically, we kick off our year with one of our biggest clients, Ford Music. They do a huge campaign called Ford Truck Month. So I'm very much excited, looking forward to that. Outside of Max personally, I'm looking forward to I get a lot of people that reach out to me on LinkedIn and would love to set some one-on-one time. Usually a lot of younger people, maybe fresh out of college, that are looking to work in the industry. I love kind of that mentoring aspect, just having to have that one-on-one time. So, people are always more than welcome to reach out to me for that. I remember being at that stage in my life and I didn't know shit and I didn't know anyone. And, it's that line from Ozark, like I didn't know shit about fuck, so it was really great to, be able to kind of share, especially during quarantine. I had a lot of people hit me up. So being able to kind of like just teach people from all over the country, like show them my experiences and kind of give them tips and stuff. So I always try to do that and give back, because I think that will only push people forward and create a better, you never know who's going to be like the next whoever, so. Yeah. I do that a lot. So I'm looking forward to that. I started kind of foraying into helping develop artists on the side. So, I'm working with an artist out of Philadelphia, who goes by the moniker 66. So he'll be pushing out new music in 2021. So I'm very excited to be kind of helping develop him and his career. And, I think, personally, I'm looking forward to the next phase of, what the music industry is going to bring. And to answer your last question, playlists. So I have a playlist series. You can find me on Spotify. It's just my first and last name, Victoria Yip, all lowercase. And I do a playlist series, and it's just numbered. So number 1, number 2, number 3.
Oh, nice.
I'm at like number 15 or something right now. And they're just playlists that really emote a lot of things that I'm feeling at that current state and time. So mental health is really important in the music industry for me. That's, a very important thing. I don't think that we focus enough on mental health in the industry. And, my playlist is just kind of a way to help get the pressure off my shoulders sometimes, right? It's also music that I would love to share with people that are emerging artists that I think are fantastic. Sometimes it's people that I'm working with at Max. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything. I've written a couple of blog posts on the Max site about some artists that have been featured in my playlist as well. So feel free to go check those out, because that's always my shameless plug for music.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Again, Victoria, can't thank you enough for the time. Glad we were able to connect so quick and get this recorded. Look forward to everything that you guys have coming up. And we will absolutely talk soon.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Murphy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.